a desperate plea in the dead of night, a hidden witness, and a secret that could shatter everything. Before we plunge into this gripping tale of fate and unexpected connections, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and tell us in the comments if you believe in destiny. Part 1. The Echo in the Hallway. The plush, carpeted hallway of the Sovereign Suites Hotel was hushed, lit only by the soft glow of wall sconces and the distant moonlight spilling through tall, arched windows. It was just past midnight, and the corridor was empty, save for one solitary figure, curled into herself near a discreet supply closet. Her shoulders trembled with silent sobs. Alara pulled her knees tighter to her chest, holding the phone to her ear, her voice a whisper strained with raw desperation. "No, Mother, you can't sell the wedding ring, not Father's ring. I'll figure something out, I promise. Please, just give me a few more days." The line crackled with quiet sobs from the other end. Her mother's voice, faint and cracking, asked, "How?" "Your sister needs the medication tomorrow." Alara bit her lip, tasting blood. "I'll do overtime. I'll clean every floor in this hotel if I have to. Her voice broke, choked by overwhelming emotion. "Just don't let her think we've given up." A door down the hall opened with a soft click. A tall man in a perfectly tailored dark suit stepped out, distractedly scrolling through his phone. Daniel Sterling, CEO of Sterling Investments, had just wrapped a transcontinental investor call. The night had been long, and his expression carried the familiar weight of million-dollar decisions. But the moment he heard her voice, something shifted. His steps slowed. "We just can't lose hope, Mother," Alara whispered into the phone, her voice cracking on the final word. "We can't." Daniel stopped, just out of her view, shielded by a grand marble column. For a moment he considered walking past, pretending not to hear. It was none of his business. She was hotel staff, likely one of the many who passed him in the lobby unnoticed every day. But he did not walk past. Instead, he stood still, watching her from a respectful distance, an unexpected curiosity stirring within him. Alara wiped her face quickly, stood, and forced her spine ramrod straight. She ended the call without saying goodbye, tucked the phone into her pristine uniform pocket, and adjusted the cleaning cart beside her. Her eyes were puffy, her cheeks blotchy, but her hands moved with quiet, unwavering discipline. She knocked gently on the next suite, forced a practiced customer service smile onto her tear-stained face, and disappeared inside. Daniel remained where he was for a while longer, staring at the empty hallway. Something in her voice, more than just pain, more than just fear, had cut through the static of his rigidly routine life. It wasn't pity he felt. It was something quieter, something that echoed a question he hadn't asked himself in years. When was the last time you looked at someone and actually saw them? That night, he returned to his opulent suite, poured a glass of still water, and sat by the window for longer than usual. The city below, a glittering expanse of lights, looked like a digital map, perfect, powerful, distant. Somewhere out there, he knew, was a young woman scrubbing bathroom tiles, her spirit unbroken, all to pay for her sister's insulin. He didn't know her name, but he remembered the way she had apologized for her very existence. What would you do if you witnessed such a private moment? Would you interfere or let it pass? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this intriguing beginning has you hooked, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of this unfolding mystery. Part 2. An Unconventional Proposition. The next morning, Alara returned to the same hotel hallway, pushing her cleaning cart, her eyes dull from lack of sleep. She'd spent the night calculating how many extra hours she could squeeze in before collapsing. As she reached the corner suite, a man in a crisp gray suit stepped into the hallway. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but firm. Alara turned, startled. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. He simply looked observant, his gaze direct. "I'm not a guest complaining," he added, noting her wary expression. "But I overheard you last night. I was in the room at the end of the hall." Alara's face flushed crimson. Shame washed over her. "I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have," He raised a hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. Don't apologize. Alara froze. Most people said nothing, or worse, said too much. He said just enough. He pulled something from his pocket and handed it to her. A sleek, dark card with his name engraved in silver. Daniel Sterling. On the back, an address, concise and stark. If you're open to something different, he said, his voice low, come by tonight, 7 o'clock. What is it? She asked, her voice cautious, wary. A job. Not charity, not pity. He studied her for a moment before answering, his eyes piercing through her defenses. Because most people cry when they break. You cried, and then went back to work. With that, he nodded once and walked away, his stride composed, as though he had just signed off on another multi-million-dollar deal. But inside, something had shifted for Alara. For the first time in years, she felt as though someone had truly seen her, not as a maid, not as a problem, but as a person. What would you do? Would you risk it all for a mysterious job offer? Or cling to the familiar? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this unexpected twist has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next intriguing development. The address on the card led Alara to a quiet hillside neighborhood just outside Aspen, where the hum of city traffic faded into the rustling of pine trees and the distant chirp of evening birds. Alara stood at the front gate of the property, a wrought iron arch draped in ivy, clutching the card in her hand like a fragile ticket to another world. She had changed out of her hotel uniform into the neatest clothes she owned. A faded blouse, clean jeans, and borrowed flats a size too big. Her hair was pulled back in a simple braid, her hands clammy with nerves. Every part of her screamed to turn around. This could be a trap, or a cruel joke, or a test she was never meant to pass. But something deeper, quieter, kept her feet rooted to the spot. A soft buzz sounded as she pressed the gate intercom. A voice, female, warm, professional, came through. Miss Alara, please come in. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. The gate creaked open. The house wasn't what she imagined. It wasn't a palatial mansion or some cold, modern cube of glass and steel. It was an old colonial-style home, with wooden shutters and a wide wraparound porch. Lights glowed softly from within, not bright or grand, just warm and inviting. The front door opened before she even knocked. A woman in her 50s, dressed in a crisp white blouse and comfortable flats, greeted her with a kind, reassuring smile. I'm Clara. I manage the household. Come, I'll show you where to wait. Alara stepped into a hallway that smelled faintly of sandalwood and old books. She passed a cozy sitting room with a crackling fireplace, a dining room lined with shelves of old vinyl records, and a kitchen where the light was still on, casting a warm glow. Everything felt lived in, but not worn. Intentional, comfortable. Clara led her into a small sunroom with 2 plush chairs, a pot of steaming tea, and nothing else but quiet. He'll be with you shortly, Clara said, and left her there, alone with her swirling thoughts. 10 minutes passed. Alara was just about to rise and make her escape when Daniel entered. He wasn't in a suit this time, but in dark jeans and a navy sweater. He looked different, without the armor of his tailored wardrobe. Still composed, but more human, less intimidating. Thank you for coming, he said simply, his voice calm. Alara stood, her heart thumping. I wasn't sure I should. I wasn't sure you would. He waited for her to explain why she was here, why he'd invited her, why someone like him would notice someone like her. But instead, he poured her a cup of tea and handed it to her, the warmth from the mug a welcome comfort in her trembling hands. I want to offer you a job, he said, sitting opposite her, his gaze steady. It's not charity. It pays fairly and it's temporary. What kind of job? She asked, her suspicion still lingering. He studied her face, then leaned back slightly, as if measuring the air before speaking. You'll live here. You'll work as a house assistant, help Clara, assist with organizing some personal archives, and occasionally help me review documents, books, letters. Letters. I'm digitizing my father's estate. It's mostly dull. I need someone who can read closely and notice small things. You're detail-oriented. I saw that yesterday. Alara stared into her tea, the steam fogging her vision. Why me? I don't know yet, Daniel said honestly, his frankness disarming her. But I trust that I'll find out. She hesitated. I have a job at the hotel. I already spoke to management. You were working part-time. They've agreed to release you if you take this offer. Alara frowned. That's very coordinated. I don't do many things halfway, he said, not unkindly, but with an underlying current of absolute certainty. A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the quiet ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall. Then Alara asked, her voice barely a whisper, "What happens when the job ends?" Daniel shrugged, a subtle shift in his shoulders. "Then we part ways or we don't. That's not the part I'm planning." She stared at him, trying to read him. He didn't look like he pitied her. He didn't look amused. He looked interested. "I need to send money home for my sister's treatment," she admitted, the truth heavy on her tongue. "You'll be paid weekly in advance. Full health coverage while you're here. No cameras, no NDAs. Just one rule." She raised an eyebrow, a spark of curiosity in her tired eyes. "No apologies. Not for being here, not for needing help, not for surviving." Her eyes watered, but she blinked quickly, fighting back the surge of emotion. "I'll try," she whispered, her voice thick. "That's enough," Daniel said. He stood, extended a hand. She took it. His grip was steady. Not cold, not controlling. Just steady. And for the first time in a very long time, Alara felt something she hadn't dared to hope for. Not safety, not security. A beginning. Part 3. A quiet rhythm, a deeper understanding. The guest room Clara showed Alara was simple yet thoughtful. A soft cream comforter draped over the bed, a small desk nestled by the window, and a vase holding a single, blooming lily. On the dresser sat a note in neat handwriting. "Fresh linens. If you need anything, knock twice on the kitchen wall." Alara unpacked her few belongings and carefully folded her hotel uniform into a drawer, unsure if she'd ever need it again. The next morning began before dawn. Clara greeted her with 2 mugs of steaming coffee and a tidy checklist. "Breakfast is at 7. Daniel takes tea, not coffee. Toast barely browned. You won't serve him. Just keep things moving." Alara nodded, scribbling notes in a small notebook. She tried not to show how strange it felt to work in a house without being barked at, where the silence was one of peace, not tension. By 8, the house had settled into its own quiet rhythm. Alara cleaned instinctively, folding napkins, polishing surfaces that were already spotless. It wasn't nerves. It was habit. She was used to proving herself before she was allowed to belong. Mid-morning, she entered a tall-ceilinged room lined with boxes and old books. The labels read, Letters 1971 to 1985, Campaign Archives, Foundation Reputation. She was still studying a faded campaign flyer when Daniel entered behind her. "Find anything interesting?" She turned quickly, startled. "I didn't mean to intrude." He shrugged, leaning against the doorframe. The door wasn't locked. She glanced at the towering stacks of boxes. So many papers. "He documented everything," Daniel said, his voice soft, a hint of melancholy in it. "Speeches, receipts, letters he never sent. He believed history happened in the margins." Then he handed her a folder, thin and worn. "This one's yours. Disorganized. Sort it. Read it." Alara looked up, her brow furrowed. "Is it private? Just personal? To people he admired or couldn't forgive? Or loved, but never told?" Alara hesitated, the weight of the unspoken words heavy in the air. "And you want me to read them? I think you'll understand them better than I can. What secrets do you think lie within those unspoken letters? And why do you think Daniel believes Alara holds a unique understanding?" Share your theories in the comments below. If you're captivated by the quiet depths of this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insights. In the days that followed, Alara found a new rhythm. settling into the quiet cadence of the Sterling estate. Mornings were spent in the kitchen with Clara, learning the nuances of household management. Afternoons were in the parlor, sorting through the boxes of letters, often pausing to blink away tears at the raw humanity captured in faded ink. At night, she wandered the quiet halls, letting her thoughts settle like dust motes in the moonlight. Daniel came and went, a quiet, present force. She saw him in the sprawling garden, meticulously tending to a rose bush. She saw him in the library, a book open on his lap, lost in thought. She saw him passing in the hallway, his gaze often lingering on her. Not watching, not assessing, but seeing. Others lived in the house, too. Clara's brother, a veteran with a cane, painted quietly on the sun-drenched porch, his strokes deliberate and peaceful. Olivia, who'd once been a nurse, came twice a week to cook, filling the house with comforting aromas. None were employees. None were guests. All, it seemed, had been given another chance, a quiet sanctuary. One afternoon, Alara found Daniel in the rose garden. His sleeves rolled up, dirt smudged on his cheek. "I didn't expect you to be a gardener," she said, a small smile playing on her lips. He looked up, wiping his brow. "I'm not, but they're mine. If something dies, I want to know I tried." She stepped closer, drawn by the unexpected vulnerability in his words. "That's rare from someone like you." He dusted his hands off, his gaze meeting hers evenly. "Power isn't about saving things. It's about caring enough to try." They stood quietly for a moment, the scent of lavender and damp earth filling the air. Then he added, his voice low and sincere, "I don't bring people here because they're broken. I bring them because they still try." Her voice was soft, barely a whisper. "Even if they don't know what to do with a second chance?" He looked at her, his eyes holding a profound understanding. Especially then. As Alara walked back toward the house, something inside her shifted, profoundly. She wasn't being watched for flaws or judged for her past. She was being seen, truly seen, for the first time in memory. And that, more than anything, terrified her. Part 4. Echoes in the silence. Rain drizzled softly against the windows, painting slow-moving streaks across the glass. The house was quiet that evening. Clara had taken her brother to a specialist's appointment, and Olivia had left early with a cold. For the first time since Alara arrived, the grand estate felt truly still, the silence almost comforting. She was organizing the last of her father's personal letters in the parlor when Daniel stepped in, a steaming mug in one hand and a book tucked beneath his arm. He hesitated at the door, then asked, "Do you mind some company?" She looked up from her stack, surprised by his presence. "Of course not." He took the seat directly across from her, not too close, not formal, just near enough that the silence between them felt companionable, not awkward. "I was reading the letter your father wrote to the mayor in '84, she said, her voice soft. "He never sent it." Daniel exhaled a quiet laugh, a rare, genuine sound. "He wrote a lot of things he never sent." "Why?" He believed the process of writing something honest was more important than delivering it. Daniel explained, his gaze distant. Said it helped him know what he really thought. She turned the folded paper in her hands, its edges soft with age. "It's strange. He sounds less like a politician here and more like someone trying very hard to still believe in people." Daniel looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "He was. Most days, so am I." The rain thickened, tapping more insistently now on the windows, a rhythmic backdrop to their quiet conversation. Alara placed the letter down and reached for her tea. Her hands, she noticed, were trembling just slightly from fatigue. Daniel caught the movement but didn't comment. Instead, he asked gently, "Have you always been the one holding your family together?" She blinked, startled by the directness of his question, by the way he seemed to see right through her carefully built defenses. "Why do you ask that?" "Because I know what someone looks like when they're tired of pretending not to be tired." For a moment, she said nothing. The only sound was the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. Then, slowly, Alara set her mug down and leaned back in the armchair, a deep sigh escaping her lips. "My father died when I was 11, she began, her voice a fragile whisper. "My mom worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I started cleaning offices at 13. Not because anyone made me, just because the electric bill, it doesn't wait for grief." What profound impact do you think Daniel's quiet understanding is having on Alara? Have you ever had a moment where someone truly saw you? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you're drawn into the tender depths of the story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more emotional revelations. Daniel listened, his posture relaxed, eyes steady, offering no interruption, no pity, just unwavering presence. "My sister Sophie has type 1 diabetes," Alara continued, her voice gaining strength. "There were days I lied to her and said I wasn't hungry so she'd eat the last pack of instant noodles. She was 8. I told her it was like camping." Her voice wavered, the memory still sharp. "And then one day my stepfather, Mr. Thorne, said I'd never be more than a maid, that I should stop pretending I was meant for anything else." Daniel's jaw tensed, but he said nothing, just listened. "So I believed him," she whispered, her gaze distant. "Until recently." He finally spoke, his voice low. "What changed?" "You." The word came out before she could think it through, raw and honest. Her eyes darted away, embarrassed. "Not you as a person," she quickly clarified. "But this place, the way people move here, like they're not waiting to be kicked out." Daniel's voice was lower now, laced with a quiet intensity. "No one's kicked out, not unless they stop trying." Another silence passed, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with a fragile, unspoken understanding. "Can I ask you something?" she said, even quieter. He nodded. "What happened in the room upstairs? The music room? It's always locked." Daniel looked down at his mug, his expression clouding with a familiar sorrow. "My fiancée Anya played there, every morning. She said the world made more sense after Chopin." A heavy silence fell, broken only by the rhythmic drumming of the rain. "She passed away. Plane crash. 4 years ago." He looked up at Alara, his eyes shadowed with grief. "I don't keep the room locked because I can't go in. I lock it so I don't forget what it sounded like with her in it." Alara didn't know what to say, so she didn't say anything. She just let the rain fill the silence, a shared balm over their unspoken pains. Eventually, she stood, walked across the room, and gently placed the worn letter in its folder. Then she turned to him, a quiet resolve in her eyes. "I can't play piano," she said, her voice soft but steady. "But I can dust it when you're ready." Daniel met her gaze, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Thank you." As he walked her back toward the hallway, he paused before the stairs. Then, almost as an afterthought, he said, "I forgot to mention, your tea, it's always steeped 30 seconds too long." She raised a brow, a small, genuine smile curving her lips. "You noticed." He smirked, a hint of playful mischief in his eyes. "I noticed things." And as Alara disappeared around the corner, leaving him alone in the quiet hallway, she realized with quiet certainty. He wasn't watching her like someone assessing a risk. He was watching her like someone learning how to stay. Part 5, The Thread of New Beginnings. The sun broke through the gray for the first time in days, painting the Aspen landscape in shades of gold. The morning air smelled of lavender and damp earth. Alara stood at the back of the Sterling estate, sleeves rolled up, dirt beneath her nails, sorting through a recent shipment of fabric remnants delivered to the side porch. Daniel had tried to be subtle. She knew the package came from one of the most reputable textile shops in the state, and it hadn't been cheap. But the order slip listed the buyer as anonymous, and Alara wasn't naive. She walked back inside, the vibrant fabric folded neatly in her arms, and found Daniel in the study, flipping through an old binder. "You didn't have to do that," she said without preamble. He looked up, his expression calm. "Do what?" "Buy me fabric. Like you're sneaking it through the back door." Daniel set the binder aside, meeting her gaze. "You said you wanted to start sewing again. I thought this might help." Alara hesitated, clutching the fabric to her chest. "It would, But I don't want to be someone who waits to be helped. I want to earn it. I didn't offer it as help, he said quietly, his eyes holding hers. I offered it as belief. Alara exhaled slowly, a profound understanding washing over her. Then let me earn it. Later that afternoon, she met with Clara and proposed an idea: to open a small sewing and skill-sharing workshop in the unused east wing of the estate. It would be a space run by the residents themselves, offering simple classes, tailoring, mending, even basic budgeting. Clara listened intently, then smiled, her eyes twinkling. Daniel won't say it, but he's been waiting for someone to suggest something like this. By the end of the week, Alara had transformed the old ballroom into a vibrant space, filled with folding tables, sewing kits, borrowed machines, and chairs arranged in uneven rows. Flyers were handwritten, invitations slipped into coat pockets and grocery bags across town. The first to show up was Olivia, holding a pair of torn scrubs and saying, "If you can teach me how to fix this, I might believe in miracles." Others followed. Some came just to talk. Some came because they had nothing else to do. And some came because they were tired of being treated like problems, finally finding a place where they felt seen. What incredible impact do you think Alara's initiative will have on those who felt forgotten? And how do you think Daniel truly feels watching her build this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're inspired by Alara's journey of rebuilding, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more uplifting moments. Daniel showed up unannounced on the second Saturday, quietly watching from the doorway as Alara guided a young mother through the basics of hemming. He didn't speak. He didn't interrupt. He simply observed, a subtle shift in his usual composed demeanor. But later, after the last student left and Alara was folding up chairs, he approached. "You're different when you teach," he said, his voice soft. She raised an eyebrow, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Different how? Like you don't realize you're the one building something." Alara's smile deepened, a genuine, radiant curve of her lips. "I think I'm just remembering what it feels like not to be scared." He stepped closer, then hesitated, a question hanging in the air between them. "When this all ends, when you're ready to move on, what do you want to do?" "I don't know," she said honestly, her gaze distant, filled with new dreams. "But I want it to be mine, even if it's small, even if it's just a corner of the world." Daniel nodded, a quiet affirmation. "Then build it. And if you ever need tools, you don't have to ask." That night, Alara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The quiet of the room was no longer oppressive. It was full of questions she had stopped being afraid to ask. She no longer felt like a guest. She no longer felt like someone passing through someone else's life. She felt, finally, like she was shaping her own. And somewhere not far down the hall, Daniel sat at his desk, reviewing spreadsheets he no longer cared about, thinking not about numbers, but about a girl in borrowed shoes who had asked to build something on her own terms. It was not admiration he felt. It wasn't just affection. It was something deeper, respect, paired with the slow, quiet realization. He didn't want her to leave, not because she made the house brighter, but because she made him want to stay. Part 6. A public stand, a private confession. The invitation arrived in a pale blue envelope, embossed with silver foil. The Aspen Legacy Gala, honoring local changemakers. Alara nearly laughed when she saw her name on the nominee list. Someone had nominated her after the sewing program gained significant attention. She'd considered declining. "You should go," Daniel said when he caught her lingering over the elegant card. "You earned this." "It's not my world," she murmured, a familiar insecurity resurfacing. "It wasn't mine either," he replied, his voice quiet. "Until I stopped pretending I needed permission to walk into it." Alara went. She wore a deep navy dress she'd meticulously altered herself from donated fabric, making it uniquely hers. Her shoes were secondhand, but polished clean. She looked like herself, and carried herself like she had finally stopped apologizing for that. Daniel arrived separately, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. He moved through the crowd with the effortless grace of someone who belonged, but his eyes constantly scanned the room, looking only for her. When their gazes met across the glittering hall, he smiled, a subtle, private acknowledgement just for her. The event started with polite greetings and small bites. Then came the presentation. A large screen displayed photos of nominees, community leaders, dedicated teachers, tireless volunteers. Applause followed each name, celebrating their contributions. Then, a photo appeared of Alara. Not from the workshop, but a grainy image from 3 years ago. She stood outside a courthouse, wearing her hotel uniform, next to a stern lawyer and her furious stepfather, Mr. Thorne. The caption, stark and unforgiving, read, "Former suspect in embezzlement case cleared due to lack of evidence." A wave of whispers spread through the room. Alara froze, her pulse thudding in her ears, her stomach dropping like a stone. Shame, cold and sharp, washed over her. She wanted to disappear, to vanish from the judgmental eyes of the elite crowd. In a moment of public shame, what would you give to have someone stand by your side? Do you believe the past should define a person's future? Share your thoughts below. If you're rooting for Alara, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for the incredible truth. Before she could move, before she could even think, Daniel rose. Calmly, deliberately, he walked to the stage, took the microphone from the startled host, and his voice, clear and steady, cut through the murmuring crowd. "Thank you for reminding us that the internet never forgets," he began, his gaze sweeping over the audience. "Especially when it wants to shame someone who dared to rebuild." He looked directly at the crowd, his eyes piercing. "You've seen a picture. Let me tell you about the person in it." His voice was unwavering, filled with a quiet power. "This is Alara. She teaches sewing to those told they had no future. She buys fabric from her own paycheck. She brings dignity to people without ever needing to say the word. She survived what most of us couldn't, and she chose kindness over bitterness, resilience over defeat." He turned to her, his eyes warm, unwavering. "And if you think a baseless accusation defines someone's worth, you haven't truly met Alara." Then, with quiet finality, he extended his hand, an unspoken invitation. The room hushed, not with suspicion, but with awe. Alara, her eyes glistening, walked toward him. She didn't need rescue. She was drawn by the look in his eyes that said, "You never had to run alone." They left soon after, slipping out into the cool aspen night. Outside the house, the wind tugged at her dress, pulling a few strands of hair loose from her braid. She turned to him, the raw emotion bubbling to the surface. "Why did you do that? You weren't supposed to explain yourself tonight. You were supposed to be honored. But you didn't have to." "Yes," he said gently, his hand reaching out to cup her cheek. "I did." She looked down, her voice small. "I hate that it still follows me." "I don't," he replied, his thumb gently caressing her skin. "It means you never stopped caring who you become." Then she asked the question that had gnawed at her for years, the true test of his sincerity. "Would you still have stood up for me if it had been true?" He didn't hesitate, his gaze unwavering. "Yes, because what we've lived through matters. But what we choose next matters more." She looked at him, her eyes full but steady, a profound understanding passing between them. "I didn't expect this." "Neither did I," he said, his voice low and heartfelt. "But I'm not walking away from it." This time, when she reached for his hand, he didn't just take it. He pulled her into his arms, deliberate, certain, holding her close. And in the soft porch light, the shadows of the past finally lost their grip. What remained was the quiet, solid promise of everything they would face. Together. Part 7, The Matriarch's Gaze. The next morning, Alara awoke to the comforting smell of fresh bread and the soft clinking of porcelain. When she stepped into the kitchen, Clara was setting a third cup on the table. Beside her, standing tall and composed in a cream coat and modest heels, was a woman Alara had only seen in framed photographs. Eleanor Sterling, Daniel's mother. "Alara," Clara said gently, a hint of anticipation in her voice. "This is Eleanor Sterling, Daniel's mother." Alara swallowed, a sudden nervousness fluttering in her chest. "It's nice to meet you, ma'am," she managed, her voice respectful. Eleanor's expression was unreadable, but her nod wasn't cold, just distant. I've heard quite a bit about you. Daniel entered a moment later, casually dressed in a button-up shirt and jeans. But something about his posture changed when he saw his mother, not wary, just quietly braced, as if anticipating a delicate dance. They had breakfast together. Clara served, but Eleanor insisted on pouring the tea, her movements precise. She asked Alara polite questions about her sewing program, about how she liked the estate, about her favorite authors. Nothing pointed, nothing harsh, but under every word was an unspoken question. Who are you? And what are you doing here with my son? After breakfast, Eleanor asked Alara to walk with her through the sprawling garden. Alara obliged, the air cool, scented with damp earth and fresh lavender. I lost my husband to cancer, Eleanor said suddenly, her gaze fixed on the distant peaks, not looking at Alara. Daniel was 23. I watched him turn every piece of grief into concrete buildings, into deals, into silence. Then he lost Anya. That almost broke him. Alara walked quietly beside her, hands clasped in front of her, absorbing the raw vulnerability in the matriarch's voice. Do you think Eleanor's questions are fair, given her past? How would you answer her? Share your honest thoughts in the comments below. If this story of connection and healing resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives. I'm not here to question your character, Alara, Eleanor continued, finally turning to face her, her blue eyes piercing. But I am here to ask a question only you can answer. Are you here because you love him, or because he's the only one who didn't look away? Alara's throat tightened, but she didn't look down. She met Eleanor's gaze steadily. I didn't come here to fall in love, she said, her voice clear and strong. I came because I had nowhere left. But what I found here wasn't just kindness. It was the first place that didn't treat me like I was lucky to be allowed in. She paused, then added, her voice filled with conviction. I don't love him because he saved me. I love him because he never once acted like I needed to be saved. Eleanor studied her, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded once, almost imperceptibly. I believe you, she said, a faint softening around her eyes. But I'm his mother. I'll worry until I die. That afternoon, Eleanor remained longer than planned. She stayed for tea, listening intently to Sophie, Alara's sister, read aloud from a corner of the sunroom. She even walked into the sewing room unannounced and smiled faintly when she saw Olivia teaching a 12-year-old girl how to stitch a button. Before she left, she handed Daniel a small, elegant tin. You used to love these, she said, a rare warmth in her voice. I made them yesterday. Daniel raised an eyebrow, surprised. You cooked. Baked? She corrected, a ghost of a smile on her lips. Don't be dramatic. She turned to Alara one last time, her gaze holding a new depth of understanding. I hope you stay, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Not because he needs someone, but because he finally let someone in. That night, Alara found the tin on the kitchen table. Inside were 6 almond shortbread cookies, warm and fragrant. Only 3 remained, and on the counter beside them was a folded note, written in Eleanor's fine, slanted script. It takes strength to survive alone, but it takes something braver to stay when you're finally safe. Alara stood still for a long moment, the simple words resonating deep within her. Then she picked up a cookie, smiled faintly, and knew she wasn't just being accepted. She was being trusted. Part 8. Bridge House. A Foundation of Love. 6 months later, the community center stood on the edge of Aspen, transformed. Once an abandoned post office, it was now freshly painted in warm tones. Its windows wide open to let in the crisp mountain breeze and the joyous sound of children laughing from inside. At the front gate hung a modest wooden sign, carved by hand, Bridge House, for new beginnings. It had taken half a year of relentless effort, countless conversations, permits, donations, and dedicated volunteers. Alara had overseen every detail, from the whirring sewing machines in the upstairs studio to the cozy reading nook by the fireplace. Daniel had handled the logistics, legalities, and late-night budgeting sessions. His quiet support an unwavering pillar. But the spirit of it, the very soul of the place, had been Alara's from the very beginning. On the morning of the grand opening, the air was electric with anticipation. Guests trickled in families, generous donors, curious neighbors, and even a few familiar faces from the Aspen Legacy Gala. Those who had once whispered now returned with cautious admiration, drawn by the palpable sense of hope emanating from the revitalized building. Alara stood near the main entrance, clipboard in hand, checking final details. She wore a soft white blouse and a simple navy skirt, elegant in their understated simplicity. Her hair was pulled back neatly, but a few rebellious strands danced in the gentle wind. Daniel watched her from a distance, hands tucked casually in his pockets, a profound pride etched into the lines of his face. She hadn't asked for credit. She hadn't asked for anything, really, but she had built something truly lasting, and he knew with a quiet certainty that this was the day he would finally ask her one thing, at last, for himself. The ceremony began with polite greetings and heartfelt speeches. Clara spoke movingly about the transformative power of community. Olivia shared how the sewing room had saved her from a loneliness she hadn't dared to name, a sanctuary built thread by thread. Even Eleanor Sterling, Daniel's mother, offered a few words, short, honest, and to everyone's surprise, genuinely heartfelt. Then the host turned to Alara. Our final words come from the woman who made this place real, Alara Torres. She stepped up to the microphone, her heart pounding a nervous rhythm. Daniel saw her hands shake slightly as she took a deep breath, then began to speak. I used to think surviving was enough, she began, her voice gaining strength with each word. That if I could just keep moving, keep earning, keep my head down, I'd be okay. But survival isn't the same as living. You can't rebuild alone. You need safe places, safe people. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the diverse crowd before finally meeting Daniel's eyes, just for a second. He smiled, a subtle, encouraging gesture. This place isn't about rescue, she continued, her voice clear and strong. It's about rebuilding, and I'm proud we're building it together. Applause erupted, a wave of genuine appreciation. What do you think is the true meaning of building something together? And how would you define a safe place or safe person in your life? Share your reflections in the comments below. If this story of community and courage is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the final, most anticipated moment. Alara stepped down, and as she reached the last step off the small stage, Daniel was there, waiting. He took her hand gently, his touch warm and firm, then turned back toward the front of the room, his voice calm but steady. There's one more thing. Alara looked at him, confused, until she saw the faint glint of silver in his other hand. Daniel took a slow, deliberate breath. I used to think success meant building walls, he said, his gaze fixed on the crowd. But I was wrong. It means building doors, letting the right people in and staying when they do. He turned to her fully now, his voice quieter, for her alone, filled with a raw, earnest emotion. You didn't save me, Alara. You reminded me that I wanted to be someone worth staying for. And that's why today, I'm not offering you a title or a mansion or a future already written. He opened the small velvet box, revealing a ring. Simple, elegant, with a delicate band of white gold and a small luminous stone. Not new, she recognized it instantly. It was a ring she had once sketched in the corner of a notebook during a lonely sewing lesson, a design she had never shared with anyone. How did you? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I found the sketch, he said, his thumb gently caressing the back of her hand. I asked a friend to make it. I wanted it to be yours, even before it was mine to give. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she didn't cry. Instead, she smiled. Slow, sure, radiant. Yes, she said, her voice clear and certain. Yes. Applause roared, filling the room with joyous sound. Sophie ran up from the crowd, her face beaming, and hugged them both, shouting, He's finally part of our family now. That night, After the celebration quieted and guests drifted home, Alara and Daniel sat on the steps of Bridge House, barefoot, holding hands, listening to the wind rustling softly in the surrounding trees. "We did it," she murmured, leaning her head on his shoulder. "No," Daniel corrected gently, kissing the top of her head. "You did it. I just stood still long enough to be changed." And in that small, quiet moment, under stars and between laughter and history, they didn't talk about wedding dates or money or legacy. They just sat together, two people who had chosen each other over and over again and would keep choosing forever. Part 9. The Sweetness of Home. The morning sun streamed through wide windows, illuminating the organized chaos of breakfast in the Sterling household. 5 years had passed since Alara and Daniel had exchanged vows under the jacaranda trees in Daniel's childhood village outside Cusco, and their family had settled into rhythms that somehow accommodated both stability and adventure. "Mama, Leo hid my math homework again." Sophia, now 14 and navigating the complexities of adolescence with artistic flair, stormed into the kitchen with accusation in her eyes. "Did not," Leo defended, milk dribbling down his chin as he clutched his cereal spoon. At 6 years old, he had inherited his mother's determined spirit and his father's mischievous smile, a combination that proved equally charming and challenging. "Peace, you two," Alara warned, expertly balancing a squirming toddler on her hip while flipping pancakes with her free hand. 3-year-old Maya, their unexpected blessing, had arrived exactly 9 months after a second honeymoon to Patagonia. Daniel entered from his home office, immediately divining the situation. "Sophia, check your tablet case. Leo, if you took her homework, now's the time to confess." Leo's guilty look told the whole story. "Why?" Sophia groaned, throwing her hands up dramatically. "She said my drawings were babyish," Leo mumbled, kicking the chair leg. "So you hid her algebra?" Daniel raised an eyebrow, a playful glint in his eye. "Interesting revenge strategy." Sophia triumphantly retrieved her crumpled homework from behind the bookshelf where Leo had stashed it. "You're such a pain." "Enough," Alara said firmly. "Sophia, apologize for criticizing your brother's art. Leo, apologize for taking her homework. Then everyone sits down for breakfast or you'll all be late." The children complied with minimal grumbling, a testament to Alara's quietly authoritative parenting. As the family settled around the table, Daniel caught her eye across the noisy breakfast scene, his expression conveying silent appreciation for the beautiful, chaotic life they'd built together. Their home in Lima, a spacious apartment not far from the original Sweet Whispers bakery, perfectly reflected their blended priorities. Daniel's sleek modern furniture coexisted with Alara's handcrafted pieces. Sophia's artwork hung alongside valuable paintings collected during their travels. It was chaotic and mismatched, yet somehow harmonious, like their family itself. "Big day today," Daniel reminded everyone, buttering toast for Maya. "Mama's interview with Gastronomia magazine, and afterward we need to finalize our Cusco house renovations." Alara nodded, momentarily lost in thought. The past 5 years had transformed both their professional lives. Sweet Whispers had grown into a respected brand with 6 locations across Peru, each preserving traditional baking methods while training local women in the culinary arts. The business model had attracted international attention for its combination of quality, authenticity, and social impact. Daniel's hotel chain had evolved too, focusing exclusively on properties that celebrated and sustained local culture. Their partnership, personal and professional, had created something neither could have achieved alone. "Earth to Mama," Sophia teased, waving her hand. "Are you nervous about the interview?" "A little," Alara admitted. "It's strange to be considered an authority on anything." "You were always an authority," Daniel countered, his smile warm. "The world just finally noticed." After breakfast, organized chaos evolved into the morning departure ritual. Daniel would drop Sophia at her art-focused secondary school and Leo at primary before heading to his office. Alara worked from home most mornings, developing recipes and managing operations with Maya's help, before joining Daniel at their shared headquarters in the afternoon. Everyone has their project for tonight, Alara confirmed as they gathered backpacks and briefcases. The family was preparing their annual tradition, a bound collection of drawings, photographs, and written memories from the past year. The project had started as Sophia's gift for her parents' first anniversary and evolved into a cherished family ritual. "I finished mine last night," Sophia announced proudly. "It's my best one yet. Mine has dinosaurs," Leo stated, as if this clearly made his contributions superior. "Maya drew too," their toddler insisted, not to be left out. "And I'm sure they're all wonderful," Alara assured them, kissing each child goodbye. When she reached Daniel, their kiss lingered a moment longer, still carrying the spark that had ignited on that first-class flight years ago. "I'll see you at the interview," he promised. The meeting with the Rodriguez investors shouldn't run long. "Sofia Rodriguez's family?" Alara asked with raised eyebrows. Time had softened many rough edges, but some names still carried history. "Her brother," Daniel clarified. "He's nothing like her. Actually approached us about adapting our social impact model for their properties." Alara nodded, appreciating how life sometimes came full circle in unexpected ways. Later that afternoon, as the magazine photographer arranged Alara and Daniel in the original bakery for photos, she felt a strange sense of displacement. The humble space where she'd once feared losing everything had become just one small part of their expanding ventures. Yet the heart of it, her grandmother's recipes, the commitment to quality, the feeling of home, remained unchanged. "One last question," the interviewer said. "You two have built something remarkable together. What's your secret?" Alara and Daniel exchanged glances, a world of private understanding passing between them. "Understanding that success means different things to different people," Alara offered. "I never wanted an empire. I wanted security for my children and to honor my grandmother's legacy. And I had the empire, but not the purpose," Daniel added, his gaze fixed on Alara. "Alara taught me that true wealth isn't measured in properties or profits. It's measured in moments like these, with the people you love." That evening, after the children were finally settled, Alara and Daniel retreated to their balcony with glasses of wine. The Lima skyline glittered before them, a view Daniel once would have seen only in terms of real estate potential, but now appreciated simply for its breathtaking beauty. "I found something today," he said, pulling a small, elegant envelope from his pocket. Cleaning out the old files in preparation for the Cusco trip, Alara opened it to find their original boarding passes from that first flight, carefully preserved. "You kept these?" she whispered, touched. "Of course," Daniel said softly. "The day everything changed." Alara leaned against him, reflecting on the journey from that moment to this one. There had been challenges. Merging their businesses, navigating parenting decisions, balancing ambition with family needs. Yet somehow, the foundation built in those early days, trust slowly earned, respect freely given, had weathered every storm. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't been on the same flight that day?" she asked. "Sometimes," Daniel admitted. "But then I remember something my grandmother used to say, that souls meant to find each other will always find a way." From inside came the sound of Sophia's music, mingling with Leo's chatter as the older children finished their projects for the family album. Maya had long since fallen asleep, her tiny contribution, mostly colorful scribbles, already safely stored in Alara's desk. "They're good kids," Daniel said quietly. "All of them. They are," Alara agreed. "Complicated and messy, and completely perfect." As night deepened around them, they remained on the balcony, fingers intertwined, occasionally sharing observations or plans for the future. The comfortable silence between such moments spoke of a relationship that had moved beyond the need for constant reassurance. In 5 years, they had built more than businesses or homes. They had created a family bound not by obligation but by choice, each day choosing again to love, to forgive, to grow together rather than apart. And it had all begun with a simple act of kindness at an airport gate, a wealthy stranger offering a helping hand to a pregnant woman and her daughter, about to be removed from a flight. Neither could have imagined then where that moment would lead, how completely their separate paths would merge into one shared journey. As the city lights twinkled below them, Alara raised her glass in a silent toast to missed flights and found dreams, to families created rather than merely born, and to the beautiful certainty that the best chapters of their story were still waiting to be written. If this story touched your heart, if you saw a part of yourself in Alara's struggle or Daniel's quiet transformation, then know this: we all deserve a second chance. Not the kind that's given in pity, but the kind that's built with trust, effort, and unconditional love. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing one person can say to another is not, "I'll save you," but, "I see you and I'm staying." Thank you for spending time with us. If you believe in stories that heal, inspire, and remind us that love often begins in the quietest places, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is where hearts come home. We'll see you in the next story.